Well, Mark, first of all, thank you so much for
Patrick.
taking the time, man, to come to your American Airlines Center. You know, most people, you think this is a bar. To most people, this would look like a bar, but this happens to be the coolest office in the world. This is your office in the center.
Right. This is where I go to get away. It's my office, my man cave, my bar when I need it, preferably to celebrate rather than drown my sorrows. But yeah, this is where I get away.
Well, so far it's been a pretty good start for you guys, 8-4. So.
Yeah, you know, we've got to play a lot better, but we'll see what happens.
I feel good about how the players are playing. I sent you a cyber desk the other day saying about how I felt on D. Will, because a lot of people thought he was, but he's actually doing very well.
Yeah, and he's still not 100% healthy. So, you know, as he gets more comfortable and gets a little bit, feeling a little bit better, I think he's going to get better.
I feel that as well. He had at one point he was 1, Paul was 2. If you remember that time, he's not a regular guy. So if he's got the fire again, he could do some stuff.
Yeah, I think he's just feeling his way a little bit, and once he gets that confidence up a little bit more, he shows those flashes of brilliance.
And I think I feel the synergy when I see it. So there's some synergy with the team. So let's get right into it with the time that we have here together. Mark, biggest difference between being a millionaire and a billionaire? What would you say?
The difference between having $100 and $1,000, or a dollar, or a penny and $1,000. It's
no difference.
No, it's a huge difference. I mean, I've been blessed. I mean, I made a lot of money at a relatively young age, and was a millionaire a few times over. But just in terms of what you can do and the opportunities it buys, there's no comparison.
At the billionaire mark.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Now, how do you stay so humble? I mean, you got to be the coolest cat in entrepreneurs. Everybody, people who follow you, you got a lot of opinions. You're not going to hold back on opinions.
Dick, you just don't know it yet.
You're a dick. I just don't know it.
Talk to me a little bit
well,
longer.
I'm sure behind closed doors, I see your interviews sometimes. You don't hold back, but still, the level of the one thing that always impresses me with you is because sometimes you know how guys get to a higher level, they have so many people that, hey, Mark, can you give me money? Can you give me money? Can you do this? You still are very accessible. How do you balance that accessibility and still running all the businesses you run?
Well, people, that I'm close to, I know what's going on, and so it's really easy, and if I don't know you, reach out to me on Cyberdust, and I've got 30 seconds to decide whether or not I want to know you. I don't do a lot of meetings. I don't do a lot of phone calls. I don't do a lot of sit downs. I do almost everything through Cyberdust or email, and that makes me a lot more efficient and gives me a lot more time. In terms of people wanting things, it's the best problem in the world to have. And so I try to be nice. I try to be considerate. But, people know what's important to me and what's not, and either you fit in that or you don't.
That's good to know. And, I finished your book, and I watch a lot of your interviews.
All 63 pages of it.
The book is, but you know what? The one part in your book with the edge, I think every entrepreneur needs to read.
No, it's true.
Literally, I think every entrepreneur, even if it's just the edge part.
Well, that's why I made it so short and sweet, right? I want people to see stories. I wanted people to see, that if I can do it, they can do it. And I don't want to get them all bogged down in, this little story or that little story and try to sound smart or be smart. I figured, the things that have worked for me and the things that I use to motivate myself, if I could keep it short and sweet, people would actually read it. And, I get comments all the time. This is the first book I've read in years, and I read it all in one sitting, and that was my goal.
And it gets a lot done in the one sitting.
Yeah,
and it's something that gets a lot done in one sitting. Okay.
And for $4, you can afford it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you haven't read about it, if you're watching, you got to get the book. It's one of the action items at the end. Mark, so question. I read the story, the whole $7,500 ring, the $83,000 to $85,000, the whole, the motley 18-year-old and then the 16-year-old, plus all that stuff that you have. But I'm curious, if you and I were buddies in high school, say we're 14 years old, 15 years old, and we know each other, would I bet on you being who you are today?
No chance.
Really?
No chance.
Tell me why.
I mean, I had my good friends, and we hung out, and I was a hustler. There's no question I was a hustler.
Even in high school?
Oh yeah, and into business in a big way. But I don't think people saw to me. It wasn't like people looked at me and go, oh, he's destined to succeed. I'll show you a picture of me in high school when we leave. I'm not going to let you take a picture of it, and you'll see why.
Really? Now you got everybody curious. You wanted to see the picture.
Then you can describe it, but yeah, I'll show it to you. But yeah, I'm not going to let you put it on camera.
No worries. We will not do that. So in high school, you were the fun guy. Were you always the guy that made people laugh? Were you very competitive? Were you the sports guy?
I was always competitive.
Guy?
I was into sports. I wasn't great at it. I was just decent. Wasn't a technology guy. I mean, I was into learning. I was a business guy. I was the guy reading about business all the time, reading business books all the time. Going to junior achievement. I was a junior achievement geek.
Why though? Why were you reading business books?
Because I wanted. That's what I knew. I mean, I was wired that I always, I started my first business when I was 12. I was buying and selling baseball cards, buying and selling stamps, anything I could do to make money. I was hustling and trying to do. So I was into business, but I not so much where it was. All my friends were into it with me, so they wouldn't know.
Baseball cards.
Yeah, baseball cards, you name it. I mean, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and so I would, probably even less than 12 years old, I would, go out and buy a bunch of baseball cards that I collected, and I would package, I would say, okay, you're guaranteed to have a Pittsburgh Pirate in this package, and I would charge 3 times as much, and I'd set up on this park bench down in the park down in Scott Township where I grew up, and I'd have these little sales. And it was great. I made money, and I mean, it was, and I learned as much about business when I was 9, 10, and 12 as I learned any other time.
I'm obsessed with baseball cards. Do you still, is there any that you
no,
really,
I wish I
really
still
like,
did.
or no?
No, I wish I still had them,
Yeah.
but they're all long gone. I gave them to my brother, and who knows what happened from there.
Something about cards, man. I don't know what it is. You explain it to somebody, they think you're nuts.
Well,
but
back
there
then, that was how you
something-
learned. Yeah, back then, that's how you had your favorite players, and you didn't see, they weren't on TV every day. You only read about them in the newspaper. There was no internet, and so baseball cards were a way to connect. I had my Willie Stargell, I had my Roberto Clemente cards.
So you're talking about.
Way back when, yeah.
God, there was no Beckett back then, right?
Yeah,
So
Beckett was just getting started, right? So,
Got it.
I didn't look at it more. I looked at it just, hey, this is the home affinity. It wasn't like, okay, these were going to be valuable at some point. So, yeah, but it was just, it was just a means.
yeah, now you have the Hannes Wagner card.
I
Estimated
could,
3 to 4
I thought
million.
about,
That'd be a cool card to
yeah,
have.
but
right?
just look around you, right? I mean, I got stuff. I'm just not into I'm not a big collector type guy.
Well, I got you a gift, man. I'm going to give it to you at
appreciate
the end. I wanted to get you something. What can I get this guy? You may have it, but I hope you don't have it and you
five of
like
them,
it.
but
So
I'm
I
looking forward to it.
probably have 5 of them. So let's get into entrepreneurship a little bit. We already have, but going into it now to focus on that a little bit. What would you say, out of all the reasons in the world, and I've read your book, you have the 10, all these keys to success, etc. What would you say is the number one reason why people fail? Not necessarily why they make it, the complete opposite.
Right, lack of brains, lack of effort.
Lack of brains, lack of effort.
Yeah, they don't do the work. They don't learn, when you walk in the room, when you start a business and you start to talk about somebody, you're never in a vacuum with no competition, unless you're just extremely lucky. And if there's going to be competition, that means somebody else knows your business as well as you do when you get started. And if you walk into a competitive environment and they still know more about the business than you do and more about your customers, you're going to lose. But most people don't consider that. They don't do the work. They don't learn more about their industry. They don't know even about their business. I mean, and so you've got to put in the effort to know more about your industry than anybody else. And that's the brains part, and that's the effort part as well. Because look, if you're competing with me, you better know what you're doing. Otherwise, I'm going to kick your ass, and you're not going to outwork me. And so, the combination is usually what kills businesses early on more than anything.
Do you think so? Now, there's a part that people say, Mark made it because Mark is a special guy and he became an entrepreneur. This guy made it. All these guys made it because they have this special gene or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a proven formula that if a brand rookie guy, he's got a lot of ambition, he's got a lot of desire, but not a lot of knowledge and how to. Do you think if he follows a formula, he's guaranteed to make it as an entrepreneur?
No.
Okay, so you don't believe there's a guarantee to make it?
No, because who knows who you're going to be competing with? So if you put two people both following the same formula, both in the same industry, right? Which one wins? Maybe they both can win and both be successful, but so I don't think there's a default template for success, but I think there's things that you can do to put yourself in the best position to succeed. So I talk about stuff in the book. I talk about the one thing in business you can control is effort. Mm-hmm. Going out there and sales, curing all. So I think and I agree with your point that there are things that if you do them, you put yourself in the best position to succeed. But if you just walk into a buzzsaw and somebody else is doing them a little bit better, it happens.
Now, are you saying to compete at your level, there's no way
or just any level, right? Just any level.
So even if you put a formula for me, I followed it. Will I eventually be able to make $250,000 a year if I follow the plan that you put? I'm not talking about 100 million.
Yeah, but you got to pick where too, right? Right. So I was
industry-wise,
right?
maybe?
Yeah, I was at a business plan competition, and they were talking about making big money reselling travel plans. and making $3 in affiliate commissions, right? It's just not going to happen. You have to be smart. You have to be smart. You can pick the wrong things. And, you're talking, alluding to it earlier about entrepreneurs being born or built, and I think I knew I was wired to be excited about business. How or why, I don't know. But, and there's certain guys that have the genetics to jump out of the gym, right? There's certain guys, that, when they golf, they have the muscle memory and the discipline. Dirk Nowitzki may not be the most talented guy in the NBA, but his discipline and his focus to do what's necessary to be successful, he's willing to do, and combine it with being 7 feet tall and being skilled, it makes him an amazing basketball player. So it's understanding what your skill set is, finding the right place to use those skills, and then going for it. Will that make you 250 grand? It depends if you pick the right industry. But whatever industry you pick, if you outwork everybody, if you try to be a little smarter than everybody, if you try to be a better salesperson than everybody, if you try to be better prepared than everybody, you've got your best chance. Because if you don't do it and somebody else does, I have the saying, work like someone's trying to take it all away from you. Work like someone's spending 24 hours, working 24 hours to take it all away from you. And that's kind of the way I look at it.
When you were younger, was your father into business? Was your mother, was there an uncle, somebody that did well in business that you admire? Was there somebody you read about that you said, I like Rockefeller, I like Carnegie? Nothing. So it's just purely you that you had business.
My dad, I think, my dad did upholstery on cars. My mom did whatever odd jobs. But my dad was always like, if you want something, you have to earn it. And to his credit, he never said, no, you can't do that. So whether it was selling garbage bags, baseball cards, stamps, whatever it was, he never held me back. And so I think that was as important as anything. And, sometimes being young and trying things, you're so naive and you don't know any better. All you do is learn. And if you fail, it doesn't matter. And so whether I was 9, 10, 12, 16, 21, the failures were irrelevant. And, whether you're, 9, 12, 16, 21, 22, 24, I'm sleeping on the couch. I have a car with a hole in the floorboard. I'm living like a bum and like a student. And so what did I have to lose? And so I think that influenced me as much as anything. So it was, my dad was like, go for it. Why not? What have you got to lose? You have to sleep on a different couch. So I think that was motivation as much as anything.
So you had the encouragement from father saying, support, go do it.
Yeah, do it.
So do you think, like, let's just say if we put 10 guys here, you interview them, okay? You could, within a 5-10 minute interview, say, this dude's not going to make it as an entrepreneur. Could you pretty much know that?
I'm not very good at interviewing. The issue is my interview skills more than,
really?
I'm horrible at it.
Isn't Shark Tank interviewing though?
It is, but I get to do due diligence after the fact, right? So I get to play my henches, but I get to check. Yeah, I mean, I can typically tell, right? I can tell but by their passion, I can tell by their focus, I can tell by their preparation. There's a whole realm of things in any business. Here's the business you're in, and here's 1,000 things that influence whether or not you're going to be successful. And really, to me, by through my experience in businesses, I can put myself in his position and say, okay, here are 900 of the 1,000 things he has to be aware of, and then go through and ask. And by how many of those or her issues they've been able to address already, that kind of gives me a sense of how hard they're willing to work. And I can tell by the questions they ask me. So all I have to do is say, okay, what do you want to know? And, when they start saying, what should I do?
They ask you.
Yeah, and that's fine, right? And I want them to ask questions, but, people like to say, the only stupid questions are the ones you don't ask, and that's not right, right? Because the questions you ask tell whoever more about you than anything else you do. Because in particular, it tells me about your preparation. If you ask me questions about just basic things that you should have known and you should have down to a science, that's going to disqualify you almost more than anything.
I read the cyber desk you sent out, by the way.
But the questions,
I said, man, I got to get the questions right with this.
It's true. Right,
I read it. I said, okay, I'll take that as a challenge.
And that's what cyber dust I'll blast out like when I have a thought.
That was great.
Yeah. So
that was phenomenal.
What the questions you ask are critical.
I agree. It's complete opposite on the way the traditional way of thinking. Yeah. And you always ask the question. So, Mark, you're now, whatever your net worth is, billions of dollars. You own a sports team. You have businesses. You're on Shark Tank. You're on TV shows. Everybody wants your time. Mm-hmm. How hard is it for you now? This is the thing I think about, because for my side, I run a business. It's harder for me to make friends now and let people in my circle, but I'm not at your level. How is it when a person like you, Is it still easy to make friends now?
Yeah,
Is
but
it
I'm
more
not out there,
association
at this
or-
point, I'm not out there looking, I don't need any new running buddies. I mean, my high school buddies are still my friends, my college buddies,
Got
my
it.
rugby buddies. The guys when I first came to Dallas that were my friends then are my friends now. I've got 3 kids, so it's more, my family just takes up so much of my time along with business. So I'm not, and even back in the day when I was single, I was still successful. I could tell the gold diggers from the real friends. I mean, it was pretty easy.
Got it. Did association play a big role with you or not really?
Nah,
Not
no,
really for you?
Yeah.
Because you were so determined it didn't matter. Nobody could influence you, influence other people.
Yeah, I just went and did my thing.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Couple words I'll just put out there. I want to see what you think about it. Because I watch you and I watch some of these other guys and I see a sense of paranoia. And I don't know if you read the book, Only the Paranoid Survive.
Yeah,
I don't know if
I'm
it's
familiar with
10,
it,
20 years. Great book that was written. Do you think there needs to be a healthy level of paranoia?
Oh, absolutely.
There needs to be.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I always say, for every one of my businesses, I said, what would I do to kick my own ass? You're right. So whatever business you have, there's somebody trying to put you out of business. There's somebody trying to take a bite out of your business. And it's better for you to figure out how they're going to do it rather than they do it. And so, yeah, that's being paranoid. And so you have to be paranoid. You have to anticipate other people's next moves, and you can't ever, downplay the competition. I was I was at a business plan competition this morning at a college, and they were kind of being dismissive of the competition. And so you can't ever do that. They're out there trying to take you down, and they're not just going to sit still. And if you're good, really, really good, you're going to inspire them to work even harder, faster, better. And so you have to be, very self-aware of what you're good at and what other people are good at. And, a healthy dose of paranoia makes a big difference. Is very helpful.
So that's interesting you say that. So sometimes, you're being a little bit too paranoid, you're being too concerned about this, too concerned about that. The other question for you would be, Mark, you don't run one company. You run many companies. You're doing deals all the time. And there is this notion that you hear multitasking, right? You can't multitask, you can't do this. So your brain, if I were to take 100%, okay, 10% here, 7% here, 6% here, how do you process all of it here in your mind with the different
That happens
responsibilities
to be something
you have?
I'm really good at, right? I process things very quickly, and that's always been my strength. I can identify what's going on typically faster than anybody and grind right through it. And plus, I because I force everybody to email or cyberdust, it's all coming from one flow, right? It's all one funnel. And so I'm not bouncing from meeting to meeting thinking, okay, what did we say in that meeting? We're having to take notes, and then we're having somebody take notes. It's like, it's already in writing, it's in an email, and if it's in Cyberdust, it's like having a face-to-face. And when I see it, I respond to it immediately. Cyberdust forced me to respond to it immediately. And so that allows me to keep things organized and stay on top of things. And, anything that's unread, that's my to-do list, and that's how I stay on top of it.
Got it. I've become a fanatic Cyberdust. There's every other hour I'm checking Cyber. When you told me, go check out Cyberdust, and then from there, we got everybody on the company. Now everyone out here, the only way you're going to get to see this first, you got to go on Cyberdust. And I'm going to put the link out. We'll do one on mentions to get everybody on there. But I love the product, and we'll get to that because I want to explain how I see Cyberdust, not as a CEO, as a customer, because I want people to see how I see it as a customer. Let's talk about speed. When people ask me and say, hey, how do I get speed going? I want to see your perspective on this because Cyberdust has a tipping point. You got Twitter has a tipping point. Facebook had everything is about the tipping point. In your mind, how does one entrepreneur increase the speed in areas that they can increase? There's certain things you can't control.
Speed in what way?
Speed of growing your business.
All right.
So how fast can I grow it?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. You've got to know your own skill set, right? And you've got to know how that fits within your company's life cycle. Some companies are slow grind, and you just have to understand that. And you've just got to bide your time until it starts to click, and then grow with it quickly. If you're trying to release a product that needs to be ubiquitous, you've got to go as fast as you can, and then
release a product, like a launch.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who will say, perfection is the enemy of profitability, right? And that doesn't mean you have to wait till it's a perfect product. CyberDust is a perfect example. We still haven't, it's been almost 2 years. We still haven't advertised it yet because we know it's not ready yet, and so it's been a slow growth grind because we want feedback, we want to keep on learning. We're evolving. But it really just depends on what the product is. It, a barbershop, right? Is it an app? Is it a service? Is it a product? But the key is looking for the low-hanging fruit. What customers are willing to write you a check or commit to it, so that they're willing to integrate it into their daily lives or integrate it into their daily business. And so getting a commitment either through time or revenue is typically what I look for. And so if I can get a commitment, then I'm going to be able to learn. I'm going to see how they use it. Do they sustain usage? And then once I get the next one, hopefully it came a little bit faster than the first one. Then I can ask for referrals, and then the next one, and I just try to ramp it up. When I bought the Mavs, we had no season ticket holder base. And so literally it was a matter of just putting a list of former season ticket holders in a white pages back then, on my desk next to my phone and making phone calls.
You?
Yeah, me. Yeah, because if I'm not going to do it, how can I expect someone else to do it, right? So just get on the phone. Hey, this is Mark Cuban. I'm the new owner of the Dallas Mavericks.
Unbelievable.
I'd like to invite you back for again. It's not, though. This is my business.
But you can't get regular sales guys or something to make those calls once they get to a quarter. You're a guy that's a billionaire. You're making those calls.
But that's all, and that's fine and good, right? Because everybody's got their own goals, right? But still, I didn't want anybody at the Mavs to be able to say, well, he's not willing to do the work, right? There's, if I walk around, I'm picking up all the papers. I'm not saying go get that picked up. I'm like, okay, that's trash. I'm picking it up. But in terms of speed of growth, it's really, you got to get that first customer first. And then when you get that first, what did you learn? Reiterate, get that next customer. And then hopefully as you learn more and more through the process, then the next one comes by even faster.
It's interesting. When we walked in here, and I appreciate that on the speed side, when we walked in here, typically when I want to know how it is to work for somebody, you got to ask people around them, right? You can't ask the person, how's it to work for you? You can't even get the right answer. So I asked the security guy, this guy said, oh, Mark comes, he's going to say hi to everybody, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. And they were all like fans. They love working.
That's because we have cameras and microphones.
So they see all their work on what they're doing. That's classic. Okay, let's transition to a different subject. Let me see the time. Okay, let's transition to a different subject with college. You went to IU, right? Now, you got a lot of people that say, forget about school. Drop out of school.
They're idiots.
So you think they're idiots. Tell me why.
If you're going to have and run a business, if you don't understand accounting, you're already behind the 8 ball.
Can't you hire a guy that knows how to run
accounting? But
then
they still have to communicate to you. Right? I mean, there's people that don't understand the concept of, the difference between profits and cash. Your accountant might tell you you're profitable, but your cash is going down. Not understanding a breakdown. And when you don't,
you think you need college to learn that?
Yeah, I think you do, right? Because it may not, for some people, look, if you're so self-motivated that you can take an online course in accounting and teach yourself everything, you're way ahead of the game anyways. But most people aren't. And I'm not saying you have to go to Indiana. I'm not saying go to an expensive school. I don't care if you go to a community college and take accounting and spend $99 for the class. Just, spending the money forces you to be more obligated to do it. But accounting, finance, lesser extent marketing, sales if the school offers that. These are that's the language of business. And so while it's possible to teach yourself these things and while it's possible to hire them, when you're starting your own company, you don't want to have to spend money hiring an accountant, right? You're already probably going to have to hire a lawyer to set up your. Well, let me tell you that if you've gone through all these classes, you probably don't have to hire a lawyer to incorporate, right? You can probably figure out yourself. And so your cost of opening up a business drops. But even more important than all that, that's the blocking and tackling. That's the language of business. The thing I learned at Indiana that was more important than anything else, I learned how to learn. And learning became far more important to me because the one certainty in business is that it's always going to be changing. If you're not always learning, to this minute, if I'm not continuously learning, if I'm not just absorbing as much as I can absorb, someone else is going to kick my ass, right? So you talk about paranoia. The greatest source of your paranoia should be knowledge. If someone else knows more than you do, and if you're not learning, if you don't know how to learn, if you don't have a thirst for learning and acquiring information, you're SOL.
Do I need to go to school to have that though? So maybe let me restate the question.
Okay.
Here would be the question. The question would be, do I need to get a bachelor's degree? So what you just
I don't
said,
see necessarily you have to have the degree.
Okay, fair enough.
So,
Then
right,
I got
you
it.
have to have the knowledge.
Totally, I totally agree with that. Fair enough. Okay, so let's skip that part and go into a little bit of politics.
Uh-huh.
And our conversation started. I said, Mark, I said, man, you got to get up there because you got such a big fan base. People want to hear your opinions about politics. You may want to run for president one day. And we were going back with the whole thing, and I said, man, people got to know what is Mark thinking about? Because a lot of times CEOs don't want to touch politics.
Right.
They don't want to touch it at all for whatever reason. If you were the president today, Mark Cuban is the president, February 1st, 2016. What are 3 things you're attacking?
Income inequality, right? Improving the ability for companies to raise capital through IPOs. I think that'll have a big impact on the market.
You touched that on Inc. You said
Yeah.
that on the Inc. as well. So let's talk about income inequality. Let's just do
Sure.
that one. So how do you do that?
So right now, let's just say you're making $35,000 a year, and you're clearing $1,500 a month after taxes.
Okay.
And you live like a student. I don't care if you're 30, 40, 50, whatever.
Sure.
You're living like a student, and you're able to save $500 a month. Okay, or you're staying at home, you're living at home, right, with your 80-year-old parents, right, and you're 50 years old.
There's a lot of that right now.
Yeah, unfortunately. And so you're saving $6,000 a month, right? Well, right now with interest rates near zero,
$6,000 a year.
or $6,000 a year,
Yeah,
a month.
right.
So you're saving $6,000 a year, $500 a month, which is amazing. That's what every Republican wants you to do. That's what every Democrat wants you to do. Try to control your own destiny. Now you put it in the bank, or do you put it in stocks? No one trusts the stock market. No one really knows what they're doing, right? No, you put it into a fund. But the problem is if you put it into a fund, because you're not making a lot of money, if the dishwasher breaks, right, you get penalized for taking that money out. So we're in a situation right now where it's if you put that money into the bank, which is really only the safe way, $6,000 a year, in a year you'll have $6,060.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
You're just not ever going to
If that.
right? And the point being is you're never going to improve your place in life, right? Where the 1% really, the reason income has become so unequal is I can hire anybody I want to help me pick the best investments. Now I do most of it myself, but I'm decent at it, right? So I can put my money in stocks, I can and hedge against the risk. I can put my money in whatever, but I'm liquid, so I don't have to worry about the dishwasher breaking, right? If you have $6,000, how are you going to keep up, right? How are you going to improve your position in life? Even if you spent 20 years saving $6,000 a year, that's $120,000, but you've earned $1,500 in interest that whole time, right? And while $120,000 is good, you're not going to be able to live off of that when you hit 65 or 70 years old, right?
Not at all.
So part of the challenge is how do you allow people to accumulate capital without the risk of waking up one day and not being able to get the money out for their dishwasher or their car or paying for their kids' school, right? Or not, or finding that the stock market is way down and they're basically wiped out. And so to me, that's the first thing to address. And so I think, one way is the Federal Reserve. I don't think you mess with the Federal Reserve, but I think you come up with savings certificates, savings bonds that literally pay a little bit more, that allow people to save for their future. Because I think that helps people protect their future. That allows people to build more of an asset base, and that takes them, gives them a comfort level that they're going to be able to survive as they age and take care of their expenses. And maybe they can buy a house. You save up enough money, earn enough in interest or whatever it may be to buy a house. But you just, it's not so much pulling the top down as in bringing the bottom up. And then I would also increase the minimum wage. And the way there's a couple different ways to look at it. But in my mind, like this past December, we gave everybody here a raise to a minimum of $10 an hour. And the reason I did it is I found out there were people that worked for me that were on government assistance in one way or another. It might be a program, but I hate the idea that I'm subsidizing somebody, the fact that I'm not paying enough, everybody's taxes is subsidizing this person's life. You think about that. And so you get a lot of business owners saying, oh, you can't raise the minimum wage. Well, all of us pay for the fact that you're not paying that person enough. And will it change the competitive balance? Well, if everybody's having to pay more, then the competitive balance still stays somewhat competitive. Will the markets change some? But it's not so much that I think raising the minimum wage is a great idea, but what I don't like is the fact that we are subsidizing low wages for businesses. And so I think, maybe there's a better way than minimum wage. I'm just talking off the top of my head.
Sure, of course.
But the bottom line is that people who work for me shouldn't have to use government services funded by everybody. And until we can get people off of that, income inequality is just going to be kind of convoluted.
Your approach will be the government doing something about it.
Well, it's not so much the government doing something about it. I want to get people off of government assistance.
Got it.
Right.
So how about this part? There used to be a time when the whole Ford Motor Company came out with, work 9 to 5. And when they came out with this after the Great Depression, that's when the 9 to 5 is only a 90-year-old system, 80-year-old system, right? So when they came out with that, you and I said, okay, I'll give you 30 years of my life. And then we said, hey, but what are you going to give me if I give you 30 years of my life? So they said, we'll give you a pension plan.
Right.
In 1984, we have 130-something pension plans, 130-some thousand pension. Today we have 24.
Right.
I think we've gone away from that because it sounds like from what your concern is on income inequality is the first point you made is $500 a month times 12 months, $6,000. So long-term 20 years, $120,000, which means they may not have long-term money for retirement. But if we go away from the pension plan, so do we figure out a way to incentivize companies?
Well, the problem with pensions is the uncertainty of business, right? So what's happening with pensions now,
Fair enough.
They've got to grow them just because to support the amount of money required for the employees, they can't find that return, right? So if everybody's only earning 1%, and your pension matches your salary, okay, and you're making $36,000 a year. Okay. I've got to find a way as a business owner to fund $36,000 per year so that you're making
over 20 or 720. So you're doing the math for that 65 to 85.
Yeah. So, but if you're only earning 1%, the rule of 72 says it takes 72 years, right?
Yeah.
So I've got to, you don't get 72 years. So I've got to fund 3/4 of it or whatever.
So would the solution would be, we can move away from this topic. Would it be given an incentive for companies who do give pension plans up to this point?
I don't think companies
mathematically. You don't think it works?
I don't think it works simply because there's too much uncertainty on the earning.
Fair enough.
The key of it is what elements of certainty do you put on businesses, right? A pension is a certain amount that you have to pay, but it's uncertain how much you're going to earn. Whether it's minimum wage or some other way of doing it, or working so that whatever it is, right, so that you don't need government assistance, then that's just part of your current business. And so it's really, I guess it's more about coming to you or I as a business owner and said, okay, if you're making $1 million a year, would you be okay with making $750,000 a year? And
so you tack on another $250 on the tax?
Well, no, whatever. Not tax. No,
okay.
not tax. A way they say to you, why don't you pay your guys more? Right?
Got it. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, a guilt type thing, right? I've said,
would it be a government enforced thing?
No,
like a crusade type of thing?
Yeah,
okay, let's go out there and do this. Like
how much
Buffett's
more
going
money
getting
do you
people give
need,
money
right?
back.
Yeah, how much more money do you need? I'm not saying, look, I've literally
I can see that happening though.
Yeah, I've literally written checks to the Dallas City Treasury. When the Mavs won a championship, I paid for the parade. When we needed extra police overtime, I wrote the check for it. Because it's not fair to ask all the citizens of Dallas to pay the taxes for something that benefits me like that.
Would you consider yourself a capitalist? Or
Absolutely.
You're full-on capitalist?
Oh, yeah, but see, what's changed with capitalism, I'm a hardcore capitalist.
We're not a full-on capitalism, you know that.
We're not, though, but we've evolved, right? And so, 90 years ago, the Henry Ford days.
Sure.
If you didn't have a job and you couldn't afford it, you found somebody's floor to sleep on and you went with your family or whatever, and if it was 12 to a room, that's the way it was. And then over time, we started having, with FDR, we started having, basic services that we would provide for you. And then over time with LBJ, it was more services, right? And welfare services. And now, we're not going to let you drop dead in the streets. We want, anybody can walk into a hospital, or now we want you to have insurance.
What do you think about that?
I think it's right. I think it's.
You think it is right?
Look,
So one would call you a Democrat.
No, hell no. Look, there's different things for different reasons, right? If we as a society decide that we don't want people dropping dead in the streets or, just dying at home, then there's a cost to that. And we can't expect insurance companies and hospitals just to pick up that cost for decisions we make as a society. Just like we want TSA at the airport. Just like we want, Homeland Security. Should we say, look, don't pay for it, we'll just all get blown up, right? There's certain minimum services that we've all defined. That's evolved capitalism, and we all have to pay for that. But at the same time, that doesn't destroy the root of capitalism and who we are and the incentive, right? It just means that we're going to take a chunk off the top. Now, on the flip side of that, how we do that and how you pay for it, that's a different beast. Is the government too big? Yes. Is the government inefficient? Yes. If for every, I'd rather the government have one half the employees and just write checks to people. The old helicopter drop of cash. Just drop cash on the people because they're just going to spend it anyways. These are people who can't afford to save.
The economy.
Yeah, so I'd rather, you talk about what would you do as a president. Probably the third thing, I would take all these services we have and I would say to everybody, okay, here's 2 years, 3 years severance, and then I'm going to take 75% of what's left and just consolidate it all together and write everybody who qualifies a check. Right, and then to go to you
have a lot of votes.
Yeah, but you use that money over. But I get crushed by all the unions, right? Because this is anti. This would be anti-union.
They control votes now.
Yeah, exactly. So it'd be very anti-union. It would be in somewhat socialist, and you can argue about creating disincentives, and you'd have to work through those things. But the one certainty is government's too big, government is inefficient, and there's ways to cut back on the amount of money you spend. So what does it take to pay for all the services we as a country feel are legit for our citizens, whether it's healthcare, security, whatever it may be, and what's the best way to do that? And I literally, rather than saying, here's 30 programs you have to sign up for, and here's all the overhead associated with managing those services and monitoring and checking for fraud, here's a check. Here's your $800 a month, in addition to Social Security.
With no accountability?
No accountability.
No accountability.
Right, because you can't get it anywhere else, right? Now, this has got to take care of your life. If you don't do it there, sorry, right? We've eliminated the excuses.
So there is a limit to where, listen, if you do nothing with this, there's nothing else we can do for you.
Right, at that point, it's
Makes sense.
Yeah, at that point, your family's also getting paid, right? You're on your own, right? But trying to say, okay, you've got to do this program, this program, this program, this program, it's just so saturated with overhead, it doesn't work.
That is such an interesting topic.
And that's all off the top of my head, right? Yeah.
I know. So would you be comfortable with a capitalist like Donald Trump being our president?
The capitalist side, yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I like Donald and he's smart. What's concerning is the way all of the candidates, Republican or Democrat, are trolling for votes. I mean, they're just pandering. What do you want me to say? I'll say it in order to get your vote.
You think he's saying whatever people
want?
Oh,
hell yes.
You think he's saying whatever people want him to say?
Pretty much. Yeah. Now,
wow.
Within the realm of what gets votes, right? So
within the realm of what gets votes,
right? So okay. It's not just what do you want me to say, right? So I need to appeal to ultra conservatives in order to get elected in a primary. And so if I'm appealing to ultra conservatives, what do ultra conservatives want? He started with immigration, that fit. Now, everything he says and does, it's okay. What's the playbook for getting voters for the primary? Now, do I think once he's elected president, he'll follow through with all those things? No, because most of them won't work. And do I think he's smart enough to figure that out and then just do the right thing after he's elected? Yes. So, like a lot of candidates and politicians, you vote for not what they say, but knowing that 99% of they say won't come true. What they'll do once they get
to
it.
see who's going to follow through with a lot, because you don't
really
know with anybody.
Well, you already know he's not going to get a wall built. Right? He's not going to get all these things done. It's just not going to happen, and there's no money to do it. So slice those off, and what will happen when you just put the guy in the office?
So what do you think the American people should ask about Trump as a president? If there's one question, what would it be? Is it the same thing you're saying, that do you really think he's going to deliver on all this stuff?
No, because he knows. I mean, look, when him and all, this isn't just Donald, right? This is
every one of them.
Every single
Bernie,
one.
Hillary,
both
Rubio,
sides,
everybody.
Right?
Sure.
Because when they put together their tax plan, we're cutting the tax to all this. We use the number from this tax group, right? It doesn't add up, right? And they say, it's going to cost $30 trillion over 10 years. Oh no, the economy will increase so much, right? Right, it's BS, right?
How do you process the vote, though? You got to pick somebody to vote for. How do
you what comes out? Look, we got 12 months, right?
You told me nothing matters till April.
Yeah, right. And so we got lots of time, and things will start. Right now, they can play Alice in Wonderland and just throw things up and it doesn't matter, right? I mean, because none of their tax plans work. And then Hillary and Bernie say, okay, tax to 1% and that'll pay for everything. Doesn't work, right? Won't work. Hillary's pay for college. Her plan is ridiculous. It'll increase college costs, not reduce. So they don't think them through. They just say, okay, here's my justification. But over time, they'll have to start thinking them through, and they'll have to start dealing and addressing some facts. And then at that point in time, you say, okay, knowing that none of this is ever going to pass, who's still going to be the best president when it's all said and done?
It's going to be very interesting.
It'll be a
this is going to
reality
be
show.
very, very interesting on what's going to happen. So let's do a couple things here with fun, and then we'll go into cyber dust and wrap it up. Sports, Dallas, and what happened with our, we can say runaway bride, if you want to call it, right?
Oh yeah.
So
forgotten.
Runaway bride, with what happened with them. If he were to ever call back this season, let's just say, because my opinion is this: I think if the Clips don't pull it together this year, I think something's going to break apart. That's my opinion. I'm just an insurance guy.
I don't care. Yeah, that's them.
If he called and said he wants to come and play Dallas, would you ever take him back?
No.
Never. So that
You
one's
never
out.
say never. You never say never, right? Everybody deserves a second chance.
Sure.
D. Will said no to us initially, and we brought him back.
Interesting.
Right. So, I just care about winning, and I'll put winning above ego anytime.
I notice with guys that get to your level that there's got to be a level. You have a strong memory because, enemies, everyone's got a target. We got enemies. But there's also a level of forgiveness when it comes down to...
Yeah, you're here to win.
Right. It just makes sense if the opportunity arises.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not, right? I mean, look, it's basketball. It's not thermonuclear war, right? It's not like he shot my cousin, or just, cut off his pinky, right? It's basketball.
Oh, my goodness. We think sometimes, when we drink some of these exciting drinks you got back here, sometimes we get a little bit more excited thinking it's very, very important.
Exactly.
So you think Golden State could go 73-9 this year?
Yeah, who knows, right? I hope not, but we'll see.
They're looking good.
Yeah, they're really good.
They're looking
good
very,
too.
very good. Some fun questions from you. Favorite type of music? What do you like?
Hip hop.
Really?
Yeah.
Even when you were younger, or was it kind of a thing?
Yeah, classic funk. Yeah, hip hop. Yeah.
Hip hop. So Tupac or Biggie?
Probably Biggie. I just like the beat more, and Tupac was more about the message, and Biggie was like, let's just party.
Favorite decade of music?
Probably in the 90s right now.
That would be Biggie's. Yeah, okay. You got a favorite song you listen to during workout?
Yeah, I forget the band though. It's called I'm a Beast.
Who's I'm a Beast? Do you know who's I'm a Beast?
I'm a motherfucking beast. I've got it on my phone over there. Yeah, that's how it goes.
That's your workout.
Beast, I'm a motherfucking beast. It's like, it's actually great.
Favorite movie of all time?
Oh gosh, I don't have any one. I'm really into like end of the world movies. So my wife always cracks up. So any movie that has
Independence Day.
Yeah, like Independence Day. Like San Andreas Fall was a horrible movie, but the whole place was falling apart. The Day After Tomorrow I'll watch. You name it. If the whole world is blowing up, and LA is crumbling, and there's some big old thrust, of water, wave of water coming through New York. I'm like, that's why I did Sharknado 3, right? End of the world.
Are you into cars or not really?
No, I'm not into cars.
You care less
I have a
about
Lexus,
cars.
but I'm not into cars.
Got it. Favorite room in the house? I know you're living in a big house. Do you got like a real cool place you built for yourself, like something like this?
No, not like this, because actually my house was perfect when I had no furniture. I mean, my buddies came over. I could throw a football. We played wiffle ball. I mean, we had one big
Inside
fluffy
house,
inside, yeah. And what we would do, like imagine, you dive over the sofa so you can catch a pass, and you roll off the sofa like you just got tackled. It was perfect. Then I got married.
Things change when that happens.
Real quick.
So, iPhone or Droid?
Both. I carry one of each, 2 different networks. So if my network is bad on one, I have the other, and I get to test and play with all that.
Which do you prefer more?
It just depends on the app.
Really? So you're both. So
yeah. What I like about
you'd be independent is what
yeah,
you would
but
be considered.
what I like about Android is that with Samsung it has replacement batteries, so I just carry an extra battery. But on the flip side, iOS batteries seem to last longer. So there's pluses and minuses to both.
Okay, so I don't know if you heard him say this. iOS batteries tend to last longer, to all my Droid friends out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about CyberDust. This has become the app that I check probably the most on a daily basis outside of YouTube.
Good.
And YouTube, I check it because of what we got going on. But
Right.
this is a very, very exciting app. Tell me the story behind why CyberDust.
Sure. Back in 2013, I had a trial against the SEC. The SEC accused me of insider trading. And in the trial, as part of their discovery, they took all my emails. And some of the most innocuous emails, when I wrote them, thought, okay, this is ridiculous. This means absolutely nothing. They would take and they turned them into like, oh, this is proof you did X, Y, and Z. Like I said, I had one of my buddies, Lee, that is the world's worst stock trader. And I said that in the email, because he asked me about the stock that I was accused of insider trading, mama.com. And I said, no, stay away from it, because I knew he would just lose money, figure out a way to lose money. And I said, when the SEC asked me about it, I said, no, he's the world's worst trader. And they said, no, you knew this stock was going down and you just said that to protect him. I'm like, that's ridiculous, right? So
Simple as that.
Simple as that. Just when you're in an adversarial position, whether it's the SEC or any lawsuit, right? If you've ever done a deposition, right? Whatever you say, the other side's attorney is going to try to turn it into something to their benefit.
Sure.
And with emails, with text, it loses context. And when you really think about it, the minute you hit send on an email, a text message, a Facebook message, whatever it may be, the minute you hit send, you lose ownership of it, but you don't lose responsibility for it. And we're not talking about just
you lose ownership, but not responsibility. Very interesting.
Right, because if I send you an email, you own it now.
That's right.
Right? If you want to say, if I said the sky is blue, what an amazing day, and then something comes out and you say, see, he sent me this email. He doesn't really believe that the sky is green. He may have said the sky is green. He's a liar, right? See, Cuban's a liar. And so you can take anything I send. If my daughter has a friend who, finds her lost iPad, which would be a calamity, and she says, I love you for this. Thank you so much. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. And some little schmucky little kid says, oh, from Alexis, I have this email, and she says she loves me. See, right? That responsibility, that context can change forever. That's why I started CyberDust. So from a business perspective, I didn't like the fact that I lost control of all my emails, no matter where they were, particularly since I do everything via email at the time. I didn't like the fact that anybody could keep it, whether or not I liked it or not, right? And I also like the fact that because it disappeared, it was like a face-to-face conversation. So when you and I talk via CyberDust, it's like talking here and now.
Sure.
Except now it's being recorded, but
minus the cameras.
Yeah, minus the cameras.
Because
right?
even if you take the picture, name doesn't say who it came
name
from.
doesn't
It's
show.
phenomenal.
But even if you take a screenshot, right? Not only does it not say who it came from, but it sends me an alert. And you talk. If someone were to have a whole group of screenshots trying to reassemble a conversation, you're going to know something was wrong in the first place, right? Because you're not going to. If you want them to save it, you're not going to have that conversation in CyberDust. If I'm sending you something I want you to save, I'm going to say, "What's your email?" Right? Because you use email less,
right?
But you still can use email. Here's a contract. Here's let's discuss the terms. We need to memorialize. That's great. But for having what would otherwise be in a face-to-face conversation, for anything that is just a business conversation, I'm going to use CyberDust every time. And so that's why I created it. And when we created it, like anything else, like any other business, I thought this would be big for kids, right? It's not kids, it's the post-Snapchat generation that really is into it. People who think in terms of words, people who communicate ideas, as opposed to here's a picture of my lunch.
And you commented on that with Snapchat, because they just made a very big mistake. They made a very big mistake.
Yeah, they save everything.
Yeah, and that benefits CyberDust. I mean, positioning-wise, that was not a good move on their end.
No, and that's okay. I mean, they're fine. Evan's not worried about anything. But at the same time, we're kind of like, if you will, Snapchat for grown-ups. Once you get past, here's pictures of my lunch.
Snapchat for grown-ups.
Yeah. you know, for people who understand, so if you only use Snapchat and you're trying to figure out what it is, right? Because Snapchat's all about pictures. It's not about communications. CyberDust is about communicating ideas. It's you can send links. You can send it from one to one person, and then send it to 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 people that follow you. CyberDust is about being able to have a private conversation. Privacy creates honesty. If we're having a conversation and you and I can talk about politics, and I can be like we did, and I can be brutally honest.
And you were.
And I was, right? Because it's not going everywhere. And the minute, if you took a snapshot, I'm not talking to you anymore, right? And then it's not for me, right? Because it doesn't have my name. So that privacy really makes people a lot more candid. And if you're in a big business, as an example, your lawyers will always tell you, write an email knowing that someone else is going to be reading it, and it could be a lawyer from an opposing counsel, right? You don't have to do that with CyberDust. You can just be honest. And to me, that moves forward the conversation and makes businesses more effective.
Do you think politicians, people who are of influence, that everything is held against them, do you think people would, public figures, they need to start transitioning away from Twitter to CyberDust? Would you say that?
Oh yeah, and there's a lot that do. They just do it on a private basis. You'd be shocked at the A-level names and the people that use CyberDust, and that have told me, and the politicians, and because
I can see that. I mean,
it's smart.
Of course.
It's smart. 90% of our usage is 9 to 5. And so, it's doing it on Twitter, whatever. Whether you're 16, 26, 66, right? Everything you do on social media creates a footprint that says who you are. Anybody I hire, right, that's going to direct report me, I'm looking at Twitter, I'm looking at their Facebook, I'm looking at their Instagram, I'm following them on Snapchat, because it all creates a profile of who they are. And now there's machine learning that's going through and analyzing these things and saying, okay, Patrick is this. And I know that because here's all his social media posts. And it's going to be a whole lot worse if you're 16, 17, 18, and you've got this whole long history. With CyberDust, it's not an issue, obviously.
And websites are coming out with a way to try to audit you, to be able to figure out what you think, your opinions
of course.
on this. There are websites,
everything you
algorithms,
move.
everything.
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you my opinion on
please.
CyberDust. So some of the people that are watching is, I love CyberDust. When I first switched to CyberDust and I started messing with it, the first couple things was, well, you know what? How do I know who the message comes from on group? And all you got to do is hold, the picture comes up, which was great.
Yeah.
All these different colors, how to know who is this, so I had to do that. Then, the screenshot. You have to learn the screenshot, that if you have to get something that you want to save, hey, get this email screenshot, I can save that. Okay, great, that helped me out. But I put it in 3 different categories. So I use dust as a text.
Right.
That's how I look at dust.
Right.
I use blast as a tweet, is how I look at it.
Exactly.
Right? Because you can send it. But the good thing is I have groups on who I can tweet to, which is great,
Blast
brilliant.
Right. Yep.
Then I like the group dust.
Right.
And on the group dust, I can look at that as group me, as group text.
It's just private.
It's private. And on group me is becoming very slow. So whether I'm running an organization, sales organization, a company, it doesn't matter. I can categorize those 3, and it's working amazingly well for me right now. So I'm a big fan of
That's the idea.
CyberDust in a major way.
And plus, I follow you on CyberDust, so I get your motivational stuff, and I'll blast it a lot, right? You get the stuff that I put out there, whether it's on business or motivation or stuff like that. So, and the cool part about it, when you tweet something, like on your Twitter, on your Instagram, on YouTube, right? No matter what you tweet or put out there, someone's going to bust on you for it, right? There's always going to be a troll that trolls you from one way. And in the back of your mind, you're always thinking, okay, how's somebody going to nail me on this? You never have to do that on CyberDust, because if I say something you don't agree with and you come back and you say, Mavs suck, well, 30 seconds later, it's gone, right? And I can block you and you don't know it. But the better part is no one else sees it. On Twitter, if they say, well, you know what? You suck, right? Your company sucks. Everybody sees it.
That's right.
Right? And you don't want to deal with that knowing that everybody's going to see the response.
Very, very good point you just made. I didn't even think about that. So you're not talking about me saying you suck, I'm held to it.
Right.
You're saying it's a brand, another person says you suck.
Right. So when I go search for your company.
Very good point.
So when you search for Mark Cuban or M Cuban, my Twitter handle, you see all the people say, oh, you're an idiot, Cuban, you suck. Why did you do this? Why did you do that? Right? I don't put anything of consequence on Twitter anymore. Twitter's like a PR newswire.
You're a lot less on Twitter than you were 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's not even a question
Not
about
even
it. It's
close.
night and day.
Not
I'm
close,
noticing
right?
that.
Anything of consequence, I put on Cyberdust and blast it out.
Right.
And so if Patrick says, oh, that was an interesting concept, we can have a conversation, and it's private, right? On Twitter, if you say something and I'm interested, one, I'm limited to 140 characters.
Mm-hmm.
Two, we could go to direct message and do it that way, but you could still keep it all, right? Three, everybody else is going to see the conversation and is going to jump in and add their own 2 cents. And so it becomes such a public medium that you can't, it's no longer social. Whereas with Cyberdust, if 30 people respond to something I blast out there, I can deal with them one-to-one. And if I like something, I can say, hey, would you mind if I reblast this, or screenshot it and send it to everybody? And then if I want to, I can.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get the best of all worlds.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. We use it in so many. We had everybody in the field use it. And then the interesting thing is the speed is it's
getting faster and faster and faster.
There was a little bit, but like this within a month it changed. Every month you're seeing something
We're
new
going to
that's
keep making
happening.
better and better.
I love it. I'm looking forward to using it a lot more as well.
Thank
you. I have a feeling, I was in front of a group of guys and I said, guys, go get Cyberdust. The challenge sometimes is, Gary Vaynerchuk, he got big on YouTube early with Wine Library. You had some of these Twitter guys with himself. He's got 1.1 million followers, but on Twitter, he got involved right off the bat.
Right.
So,
well, yeah, I've got 4 million, right? And it helped that I was there in 2009, right?
So my suggestion to everybody is if you're not on, if you don't have a big presence on Twitter,
Cyberdust, it's a lot easier.
Go get it big before Cyberdust got 100 million users. I'd want to have
let's hope we get the right. But yeah, so if you add yourself, so if you want to get followers and you're looking to build a following, on Twitter it's really hard, right? And if you build up 1,000 followers on Twitter, it's probably taking you multiple years, and half of them are dormant or bots, right? On Cyberdust, there are no bots, first of all. And if you add yourself to chatters, then you're going to be able to get followers. And we have a Follow Friday like Twitter does, right? And we'll put out there people to follow. But also, we're going to be improving our discovery mechanism significantly here over the next 2 months. And so, because to your point, we want regular everyday people to be able to get 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 followers, where on Twitter they might have 150 followers and most of those are just follow backs or bots. And so they're not really of consequence. So
no doubt about it. Yeah. Twitter, they did a number saying Twitter, their biggest criticism is only 24% of users are real.
Oh, real? Yeah.
Everyone else is
crazy.
not real because they sell 1,000 fake followers because nowadays you can buy fake followers.
Right.
And then so that's the part
none of
where
all bots don't work. You can't bot ours. So.
You can't bot Cyberdust. That's great. That's great. Well, again, Mark, thank you for your time. I want to give you this book, and I want you to open it in front of everybody. I just want to see if you actually have it or not.
Okay.
If you do have it, you can give it away to somebody. And I use, obviously, incredible special wrapping paper.
That's so funny. No lie. I don't have 5 of these, but I'll have at least 4.
Of it? Now, is it a first print, first edition?
No, it's not a first print, first edition.
This is a first print, first edition, 1957. I found it from Beverly Hills. It's not a 3rd edition. It's first. Both that original sleeve,
That's
everything.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah, and I got it for you because when we were in Nashville, I got up and asked you a question. I said, hey, book that impacted you the most. You said, and Rand Atlas Shrug. I said, I can't think of anything better to get it for you.
So there goes another 3 weeks of me reading it for like the 10th time. Thank you. That's awesome.
I appreciate
That's a great gift.
Thank
One of the best I've got.
Thank you so much. And folks, everybody out there watching this, you obviously know everybody loves this man for his honest, direct, whether you like it or not, he's going to give you the direct opinion on anything with business. 1, share this video with other people. 2, go get Cyberdust app, download it, and tell your friends to also get on Cyberdust and start using it. And, many times you'll be surprised. You send him a message, you'll be surprised with him responding back to you.
I try to respond to them all, and I guarantee you I'm going to try to motivate you. Like Patrick, I try to do as many motivational
great stuff you send every day.
Yeah.
What's your user at Cyberdust so they can also... Is it
just BlogMaverick.
BlogMaverick?
Yeah, BlogMaverick.
BlogMaverick. Once again, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.